Intimidation is a thing that exists out there. Intimidation can exist anywhere, but sometimes it also doesn't. So, EXEs not being intimidating. It is a thing that does exist out there. I would say that there's a few different categories when it comes to an EXE not being intimidating. You can have an EXE that is meant to be a joke, something that is not meant to be serious at all. You can have an EXE that mixes the idea of being intimidating, but also not being intimidating at the same time. And the most obvious answer to come out of all of them, not being intimidating in the slightest. So I just want to talk about EXEs not being intimidating, and you'd be surprised to hear me say that this is not entirely a bad thing. You'll see why when I get into it. So let's get into EXEs not being intimidating.
I'm a ghost now! Ooh.
You might remember the era of EXE games. They still exist to this day, but back then they kinda sucked. We had stuff like Sonic.exe, of course, Mario.exe, Aladdin.exe, Toy Story.exe. What do these games have in common? They're not that great, they don't really have much of an atmosphere, and their essential villain is just not intimidating in the slightest. These games try so hard to be serious, but don't do the best job doing that, and the main motive that these red-eyed fuckers usually have is that they kill you. That's it. Maybe if these games had some level of an atmosphere to them, maybe that would make it a little bit better, but not really. Would these games having better gameplay fix the issue too? I don't think it would. Oh, how terrifying. They go around and kill people because they feel like doing that, and there is no explanation for such a thing, just accept it. When you really don't have much quality control for what you're making, you're just kinda left with Sonic.exe, Mario.exe, Woody.exe, and Aladdin, the most piss-poor villains ever. Because these games are poorly made, so are the villains of these games too. The villains are just very unintimidating. The best way to put it is that they completely suck ass. But I'd say once Lord X showed up, EXE started to become kinda intimidating. I'd say Lord X is the best of both worlds, being intimidating, but also giving a goofy aura. I think this works perfectly well, and I could say this for the reimagining of Sonic.exe. He's not like super intimidating, but he's a little more intimidating than his OG counterparts, and I guess this version of the character embraces the goofy side of EXE. And I don't think this is a bad thing. You can have a villain be serious, but also have them be goofy at the same time. So now we're left in one more category where EXEs, well, some of them, are not meant to be scary at all. Before we get into that, I want to complain about another example of non-intimidation. Atem, or whatever it is from the Needle Mouse series, I feel that this guy isn't really all that intimidating. What does not help with this is that he's introduced near the very end of the series, so there's not much time to even be intimidated by the guy. Oh no, he was controlling Sarah all along. This won't be the last time I bring up a sorta out of place character, so just keep that in mind. You all know about Sunky.mpeg. His main gist is that he likes to eat cereal and party. He works pretty well as a parody joke character to Sonic.exe. His character is not meant to be intimidating, and it works perfectly well. Another random EXE I sorta thought of when it came to non-intimidation was Wacky. Take a look at this. Do you think this is intimidating? Does this scare you? I'd even argue that Bizarro isn't really all that intimidating. They are intimidating a little bit, but I wouldn't say fully intimidating. I guess it's kinda just a Lord X type situation when it comes to her character. I tried to think of a horror brew that was non-intimidating to add on to this, so the only one I was able to think of was Duffy or Damsel. She's more of a victim type character, so I'm not really expecting her to be all that intimidating. I guess you can kinda count this as intimidating, but I wouldn't entirely say that. Her character could be intimidating, but I can tell that's not the purpose of what her character is. So this leaves me with one more EXE that is not meant to be intimidating, being Rerun. I do think this character genuinely can be intimidating and have some level of horror to it, but it seems like it wants to lean more into its tragic side. Which, I'll be honest, the only reason I got myself into this character was because of its design, lore, and concepts. But I still do think this character definitely can have intimidation to them, but it's fine if they don't. It's something I could probably go without. But it has been shown to me that the creator of this character can do horror. It just seems like with this character they might not want to do it, and again, I'm perfectly fine with that. But I think it's possible you can make Spaghetti Sonic intimidating, even if you don't want to fully embrace it. I mean, it can physically take over the body of a cartoon character and fuck them up mentally. And then you have the 8-inch tree that is built like this with boobies. So, overall, some EXEs are just not intimidating. Some can mix the idea of intimidation and non-intimidation well together. And sometimes they're just not meant to be intimidating. And some of this is perfectly fine, but some of it could just be pretty crappy. So that's all I have to say about EXEs not being intimidating. Let me know what you think about this, and I'll see you guys next time, and bye.